Hello and welcome to today's podcast, Alternative Living Chats. I had the great pleasure in talking to Wes and Amy, who live on a narrowboat called Gregory's Girl. You can hear how they started, why they started, and what they think about living on a narrowboat here.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast, and I have Wes and Amy with me. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Amy.
And together we are Boat Time.
So obviously you live on a narrowboat. So how long have you been living on your narrowboat now?
Coming up to, I think it's a year and 4 months.
Wow.
A year and 4 or 5 months. So
Yeah. It's flying by.
Yeah, it has,
yeah.
On some parts it feels like we've been on it for years and years, and then sometimes it feels like we've only been on it about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So where did you actually move on? Whereabouts was the boat when you bought her?
So we bought it from Swanley Bridge Marina, which is up near Chester, sort of near the border of Wales.
Oh, right.
And yeah, it hadn't been in that marina that long, I don't think. And we basically, as soon as we bought it, we did a couple of bits that we had to do, and then just set off straight away, continuously cruising.
Wow. So had you both been on narrowboats before?
No, so Wes had been on one when he was really little, but he can't really remember it,
Yeah.
so we don't count that. And I'd never been on one, and we were starting to research on YouTube, and we found other YouTubers that lived on the boats and stuff, and then we was like, oh, this looks really, really cool. So we hired one to kind of make sure that we still enjoyed it when we was actually there, and we hired it in the middle of October as well, so when the weather was starting to get rainy and like drizzly, to make sure that we didn't only like it when it was sunshine and everything was really good, and we dealt with all the mud and stuff, and we still liked it. It didn't put us off, so
yeah,
that was really sensible.
yeah. Would highly recommend doing that if anyone is ever thinking about it.
Yeah, I must admit, I totally agree, because I'd never been on a narrowboat until we went on one holiday before Steve, because Steve had lots and lots of holidays and decided that we'd go, and we were until in June. It was lovely sunshine, so
yeah, it's a very different experience.
Yeah,
it is totally different. So, what made you decide to come and live on a narrowboat then?
I guess that for a long time we've toyed with the idea of sort of travelling around for a while. And sort of getting a little bit away from the rat race. And initially we were thinking about doing van life. We really wanted to just get like a transit or a sprinter or something, do it up and then go travelling around Europe. But at the same time, this was when kind of Brexit was changing all of the rules, and it was a little bit touch and go as to what we would be able to do. So we started looking at something a little bit closer to home where we could get the same sort of freedom and sense of adventure, but without having to deal with all of that sort of red tape. So we stumbled across narrowboats, and then, as Amy said, did a lot of research into it, and then sort of fell in love with it.
And we had the pets as well, so it just made so much more sense. It was so much more easier to deal with having a rabbit and a dog on a boat than it was that it would have been in a van.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, as I say, I've met you, and so I know you've got your dog and your rabbit, and they live obviously happily. Did they adapt to it quite easily then, or how did they feel moving onto the boat?
Yeah, luckily they're both quite adaptable pets anyway, because we've moved in our time that we've had them. They have moved house a couple of times as well. So they were really good at that, and they were just kind of took it in their stride. Our rabbit is like 9 years old, so he's slightly deaf and blind anyway. So we always say we don't actually know whether he lives on a boat yet. You plop him somewhere and he sleeps, and that's it. He's happy. So he adapted completely fine. We've at the bow of the boat, we've kind of set up his little home, and then he can hop down on the sofa with us and stuff like that. But he loves it. He's happy. And then Rufus was fine. It took him a little bit of time to get used to the engine noise, and he was a little bit like confused about that. And he would bark a lot when we were cruising, like at the path.
Right.
But he seems to have settled a lot now. We take his bed out with him, and he sleeps, and he definitely knows it's his house now. Like when we're walking from, like, on the way home from a walk, he'll always stop at our boat, like he knows which one it is. It's really cute.
And I think his favourite thing in the world is walks, and like seeing, smelling new things. So for him it's perfect. Like every week he gets a completely new environment.
That's it, yeah. It's good. A new adventure for him each week.
Yeah.
So what do you do for work? Do you work whilst you're on the boat?
Yeah, so I work full time. I've worked in game development for a number of years now, and when the pandemic sort of hit, a lot of my industry just went to working remotely. So I sort of carried on straight through that.
Yeah.
And sort of saw that as an opportunity to kind of poke my employer and say, this is working all right. Mind if I do it from a boat instead? They were fine with that, which was really great. So yeah, I've managed to sort of stay working full time the whole time that we've been on the boat.
Brilliant.
But because our sort of, I guess our outgoings are a little bit lower than they were in the house, it's just meant that there's less demand to earn as much. So I took a sort of step down in my job role so that there was less stress and I could just sort of enjoy boat life a bit more.
Good idea.
I used to work in admin and like events management and travel, and I was able to leave my job when we moved onto the boat because it's still not cheap, but the outgoings, monthly costs were a lot cheaper. So now I was able to go like self-employed, which is something I've been wanting to do for ages. So I Twitch stream, which is basically where kind of like I play games and there's a live chat and an audience and we all kind of laugh along with the game. And I also manage our YouTube channel and all of our social media as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. And what I'll do is, obviously, when the podcast goes out live, I'll put all your details in so people can follow you and ask you any questions and everything because obviously you're on all the social media platforms, aren't you? Which will be fantastic for people to follow you, will be interesting as well.
Oh, thank you.
That's good. So, since moving on, what would you say has been your worst experience? What would you say the bad side of living on a narrowboat is?
It's a good one.
Yeah, I think we've definitely had, I'd say 3 quite scary moments on the boat in like the year that we've been on it, and most of them are to do with, I guess, other people.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like the general public, because you're living so close. Your front garden is essentially a public footpath.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the feeling of feeling unsafe where your house is. I say that is probably the worst thing, and a couple of the times we've had instances where we've dealt with like kids throwing rocks at the boat, or we've had people throwing like hearing glass smash outside the boat and stuff like that. So that's definitely the scariest we've felt. Most 90% of the time we feel completely safe. It's just there are sometimes you do have to deal with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's just the fact that you're basically everything that you love is contained within a little floating tin can that moves at about 2 miles an hour in one slow, straight direction. So, yeah, if you're in a bit of a dodgy situation, getting out of it isn't always very easy. So it can make it feel a little bit tense.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And when you moved onto the boat, did you understand like how the engines worked, how the power systems worked, and things like that on a boat?
I'd say that we had a very, very basic level of understanding of boats. We'd done our best to sort of research as much as we could, but as anyone who lives on a boat will tell you, it's such a steep learning curve. So no matter how much you prepare yourself for, unless you've got someone on hand who knows everything inside out, there's just tons of stuff to learn. So I'd say even though we tried, we still came on just feeling like we didn't know anything at all.
Especially with like DIY as well, because we've always lived in rented accommodation as before. We've never had our own house to be able to, I don't know, change electrics up or redecorate or anything like that. So even painting the walls was completely new to us. So it was really good to be able to have our own space and put that mark on it, even if we didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah. Narrowboats give you a good opportunity, I think, to just have a go.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say that we've learned a lot through that.
Because it's all self-contained, you're not connected to the grid. Even though it is more complicated, I feel like there's less risk of kind of messing everything else up like you can't cause a power cut in your town if something goes wrong.
You just sink your house.
I follow you on your YouTube channel, and earlier on in this year, you took the boat out and blacked it yourself as well, didn't you? Which is, I mean, that's a big thing to do when you, I mean, I wouldn't, I've been told we are doing it next time ourselves, but I'm dreading it. So, I mean, how did you, plan and make sure you did everything how you needed to do it?
I think again, like most of the time, whenever we have to do anything, the first thing we do is like look at other people's videos on YouTube how to do it. I think that's normally our port of call. But yeah, I guess in terms of, I mean, you handle most of the research for the actual wharfs and marinas and things, and it's one of those things where everything to do with boats is very confusing. There's so many different ways to do the same job, and everyone will tell you something different. So it's really hard to sort of sift through all that research and try and identify what it is that you specifically need for your case. Eventually we settled on like a certain type of paint in a marina that had good reviews, that was close enough for us to get to, that allowed us to do the underside of the boat as well, which is something we wanted to do. And yeah, it's just a case of calling around a lot of different places and trying to match up everything that you need with what they offer.
Yeah. And luckily the actual painting of it is quite simple. You just kind of slap it on and make sure that it's all covered. It's just a lot of tiring manual labour, I would say. It's a simple task, but it's very long, especially if you've got a longer boat.
Yeah, definitely. And so obviously, because you live on your boat and everything, you managed to carry on living on the boat while you were doing all the work.
Yeah, so some of the marinas won't let you, and then we had a couple that said that you could live on it, but not with pets, which was a bit odd. But the one that we went for in the end, we lived on it full time on the hard standing, which was a very bizarre experience.
Yeah,
because when you're used to your house sort of wobbling around when you move, when it suddenly doesn't, it's really weirdly unsettling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. It must be really odd. And I've had one occasion when we got stuck on something when we'd moored up, and the boat didn't move. And I said, no, we're gonna have to move because I can't cook that. I was trying to go from one side to the other, and it was weird. Your head doesn't work, the balance changes.
Your body automatically leans to compensate, and when it doesn't tilt the other way, you're like falling over.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were excited to get back in the water after the weekend being on hard standard.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And so how much of the waterways have you managed to do so far? Or what's your plans for the future with travelling?
So we've kind of done we started right up north, and then we kind of have slowly made our way down south. And we've kind of started on the Welsh canals, and then we've just kind of done a big thing in the middle, a big route in the middle. And now we're right at the bottom. On K&A. So we definitely, our goal, and one of the reasons why we kind of chose the Narrowboat, is our goal is to be able to do the entire network, hopefully, one day. So we're going to try. We've got a map that we kind of colour in over time. Probably we're only about, I'd say 20% of the way through it so far. Because we only move on weekends as well. So we are a little bit slower than the average boater, but we're loving so far where we've explored.
Yeah, and you've been down onto the Thames, haven't you, for the summer?
Yeah, we spent a long time this summer on the Thames, well, sort of coming down the Oxford Canal, but then spent the end of the summer on the Thames, which was an experience in of itself, like a whole different ballgame to canals, but definitely with its perks as well.
So
at least it wasn't. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, what was it like? Because obviously canals and rivers are so different, aren't they? I was just wondering what it was like, and the Thames, I mean, it's huge, so
yeah. Our first experience of rivers was the Trent, which I know is a big river, and it can be tidal in sections. It's very scary, and we were kind of expecting it to be like that the whole time. We did it in December, so we knew it wouldn't be as intense, but when we got there, we were really pleasantly surprised at how calm the water is and how little flow there is. So it's kind of like a canal in some, unless it's been raining. The flow is really mild, and it's just really nice. There's definitely big perks, like when boats go past, you don't move at all because the water's so nice. Deep. Mooring is definitely a lot more difficult, but some of the scenery is just absolutely gorgeous because it's so open and vast, and a lot of the time you're surrounded by trees all around, forests. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say one of the big perks as well is because it's so much wider, you can just swim around anywhere. So obviously, like on the canals, having to go miles and miles simply to turn your boat around, you could just do donuts on the spot on the rivers. It's great. But I'd say it definitely feels a little bit more geared towards leisure boating generally. Like a lot of the facilities are much more sparse. A lot of them you can only fill containers, so you can't properly fill your water tank up. So that can be a little bit stressful. Like when we're trying to moor up for a week, and a lot of them are just like 24-hour visitor moorings, or you have to pay
3 days maximum,
£15 a night or something.
Oh wow!
Yeah. But other than that, it's really good.
Great experience.
That's good. And so what about shopping and managing to get to the shops and everything, especially with the winter coming up? Have you got that all planned? Is it, do you find that quite easy?
I'd say for the first year, or maybe like 8 months, we've really struggled with shopping, and we would have to walk maybe sometimes over an hour with like backpacks, bringing all of our food into the nearest shop. And we struggled quite a lot with food. And then I don't know why it didn't occur to us sooner. Some of our boat friends said, we just get like Tesco deliveries or Sainsbury's deliveries to the boat. I don't know why it didn't occur to us sooner, but ever since then, we're really lazy. I'd say like 9 times out of 10, we just get a delivery now. It's so brilliant. We just do it to like, whether there's a pub car park nearby or a church, or sometimes you can even do it to a bridge number. And the Tesco drivers will find you. And then you just have to carry it back a short way, and you can stock up. It's glorious. We're very lazy now. we do that most of the time, I would say.
Yeah, it's not always as easy as it. Like most of the time, we can get close enough to a car park. But recently, the other day, because we are really in the middle of nowhere here, the closest place with a postcode that we could find was a church about 35-minute walk away, like down a muddy hill.
Oh no!
So we had to get our sort of trolleys out, all our bags out, and lug it all the way, and it was exhausting. But most of the time, it's just a case of like walk down the towpath to the car park and wheel it back.
But yeah, winter is definitely a lot harder with the muddy boots and the slippery towpaths and getting all the leaves stuck in the trolley wheels. The joys.
That is definitely, and it is the downside, isn't it? The towpaths are foul. It's especially with obviously having Rufus going in and out. So it's trying to keep him because he's white as well, isn't it? So,
so having a white dog, and we're glad because we got the cruiser stern, which makes quite a big difference because we kind of just wipe him off outside, which helps a lot. But it's still, because we kind of was lucky last winter, because we were stuck behind a closure, so we didn't experience the muddy towpath quite as much being out there fully, because there was concrete a lot of the time. So this is the first year, I think, where we're going to really get to know the muddy towpath and how we're going to cope and live in walking boots for the whole winter.
Yeah, especially on the K&A,
So when you decided to move on to your narrowboat, what did your family and friends think of you doing that?
My family were sort of surprisingly just fine with it. They were just like, oh, that sounds interesting. Wasn't really much more to it. I think my family's sort of quite spread out anyway across sort of Lincolnshire area, London, and one of my sisters that lives over in America. So we're all quite used to just being spread out anyway.
Yeah.
My family, they were fine. They were a little bit more like, how is that going to work? I've never heard of that before. But now, they kind of get it because they've been on the boat and they watch the YouTube videos, so they're able to see that it works. Yeah. There is obviously the kind of missing out on being close to family, and like I do miss being with my mum, and I know my mum misses me and my sisters, but they're fine with it, and we get to see them from time to time and just get trains, and they'll drive down to visit us or.
Yeah, that's good. And also, as you say, having the YouTube channel, they'll be able to watch to see where you are and what you're up to as well, won't they? And your friends can do that as well. Yeah. So, what would you say what's been your 3 most favourite things since you've been moved on to the boat?
That's a good question.
I think one of them for us this year was in Oxford. So we had our friends come and stay over for a week, which was quite cramped on a 50-foot boat, but it was great fun. And then we sort of ended it in Oxford, which it was a really unique experience because it feels like a very friendly city, and you moor about a sort of 20-minute walk away from the city centre, but it doesn't feel sort of as intense as some city centres do because you're still a little bit out of the way near all the sort of fields and trees and everything. was just felt like the climax of summer. It was just really peaceful, but there was tons to do, and we went river swimming. That was a really special one.
Yeah, definitely like being able to see different towns and cities that we probably never would have thought to travel to before. So some of our favourite towns are just like really tiny little towns that really small population, and you wouldn't really ever think to go unless you're on the boat. So that's definitely a really big highlight. And then everyone says it, but like the people that you meet along the way and the friends that you meet along the way, and everyone that just has that one thing in common of living on a boat and wanting to kind of live their life a little bit differently. And then all of the differences that people have as well, kind of different walks of life, different ages, different hobbies, different jobs. That's really, really, really good. And then one more thing.
Well, there was two other specific things. There was going over the Pontcysyllt in Wales. That's just incredible because it's like the tallest.
Yeah, the big aqueduct.
I think in Europe or
Europe,
something.
I think. Yeah.
I think it was terrifying, but that was pretty incredible. And then another one for me is last winter when we were just in the thick of the snow. I think it had been snowing really heavily overnight, and we set off in the morning. And we were just in the middle of nowhere, and it was just completely untouched snow for as far as you could see. And it just felt like you were in the middle of a Christmas card.
Yeah.
It was just such a unique, special feeling.
I really hope it snows this year.
Yeah.
And so, what you're saying about you going into lots of towns and villages and everything and seeing different ones. Have you got a favourite that you've been to that you really? You said Oxford was wonderful. What about? Is there any other villages that you found and that you were amazed how pretty or nice, special they were?
It stands out as that was a really, really nice town because it was right on the end, and it was kind of up in the hills, right on the end of the canals in Wales, and it just felt like a little seaside town. There was kind of a big river, and there was a train station with old like traditional steam trains with arcades and fish and chip shops. So it just felt like a really nice little British seaside town. That was really, really nice.
Similar sort of vibe as well from Lechlade on the end of on the Thames. That was just very picturesque. And I think because to get to those locations, it's quite a trek. So it feels like a really nice reward at the end.
Doon was also a really, really high favourite of ours.
Yeah,
that was really nice, and Ellesmere as well.
Yeah.
We've said the same. Just got an aeroplane going over the top. We've said the same when we've been going down. Because you come across these different villages to go and have a wander around, which you'd never ever have seen down there. I used to drive down the A38 all the time with work, and I'd never even been to Arawas before, and I'd never noticed a sign or anything. And it's such a pretty village, and it's still one of my favourites since we found, and which just it threw me completely. So living on, and you're both very, very happy and everything. How do you manage to do all your laundry and everything like that? Do you have a washing machine on board? What you can manage to cope with getting everything washed and dried?
We have a little camping washing machine, which is it's just a single tub one. I think it's about 2 kilograms, which we can kind of do, like t-shirts, underwear, kind of like light things.
Yeah.
But that is one thing I really wish we had a washing machine on the boat somewhere, because, like bedding and towels is something that we struggle with. We have to have lots of sets of bedding so that we can change them in case we can't get to a laundrette, because not every town has them. That is I guess a little bit more stressful. Like we can do it, it's just a lot harder work because I have to manually wring it out because the dryer section on the washing machine isn't very good, and having to dry it all over the boat in the winter and hang up socks everywhere over the stove. I do wish we had a washing machine, but we manage fine. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things now that you're so used to it, you almost forget the luxury of having a washing machine. But every so often I do have a little dream of being able to take a washing machine at home. But laundrettes, we love laundrettes. I think they're a great service, and we really like going to them and supporting them.
I think most boaters as well are fairly comfortable with each other, just sort of wearing whatever. So we tend to have one pair of like really grubby joggers on the go that you can just throw on like a lot of the days when you're not really doing anything, and that kind of helps that there's less of an expectation to be sort of really polished and clean.
And sometimes if you're in the middle of nowhere, you might not see another human for a week, so it doesn't matter.
Do what you like then.
That's it. Yeah, you haven't got to have a different set of clothes on every day or anything like that.
Exactly.
Get away with it. So, anybody thinking of doing what you've both done, what would you, what advice would you give them to before they actually jump in and go and purchase a boat?
For me, mine would be, if you get it as it's really nice 100% of the time, because it's not. There have been times where kind of we've cried out of stress and we've just kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think it's the bad things, like try and put yourself off before you buy the boat. So kind of try and research why people don't like it. And like we said, maybe hire a boat not in the summer, so you can see what it's like when it's raining and you still have to go out and cruise the boat. And yeah, just try and, it's hard work and it has to be worth it for you. So kind of make sure that you can deal with that so that the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, I'd say if you are like committed and you're pretty sure you do want to do it, then to just not hesitate. Like there's never going to be a perfect time to do it. You're never going to know all the things that you need to know. Just go for it. And worst case scenario, you don't like it, you sell the boat and you do something else. But at least then you've tried it. There's too many people I think that we've spoken to that are just sort of filled with regret for not giving it a go. And it's just bite the bullet, see what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and that's really good as well. What you just said, Amy, about trying to see the bad things, because even watching a majority of the vlogs, reading stuff, you don't hear about all the bad things really that you've got to do, and you forget that you've got to go and fetch water and so you've obviously got to be careful, haven't you, the amount of water you use and things like that. I mean, did it take a lot of adjusting for you to like get your head round what you can do and what you can't do, and like getting your coal and your logs and like the loos as well? I mean, everything has to be daily basis really, doesn't it?
Definitely plan ahead so much more than you do in a house, and you have to be prepared and know where your next source of water is coming from, which is just something that you never have to think about. But I think it just, you're kind of prepared and it becomes second nature to be able to plan ahead, I think. We thought it was going to be something that would kind of consume a lot more of our time and Wes still gets a little bit stressed about where we're going to kind of empty the toilet and stuff, but it's kind of, you can always work it out, and there's always enough, and you can kind of figure it out. There's only been a couple of times where we've had to be like quick and like cruise when we didn't expect because we're kind of going to run out of water or something. But generally, as long as you kind of, it's always in the back of your mind, naturally you're always kind of looking ahead anyway. Adapted quite quickly to that, I think, quicker than we thought. And we always laugh because, like, for now, we don't mind filling up a 400-litre water tank or emptying the cassettes of our toilets or anything like that. But in the house, the idea of having to take the wheelie bins down the drive and put them out on a Monday, it just seemed like the biggest job ever. And it was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And now we're just so used to doing everything else that comes with boat life. It's just kind of second nature.
Yeah, it completely changes everybody, I think, doesn't it? You muck in and get everything done, So, are you spending Christmas on the boat?
So,
for the first time, we're spending the whole day kind of just us four and kind of having a chilled one. So we're really excited for that.
Yeah, we're kind of nowhere near any family this year, so we'll figure out something to do with them at some point. But the current plan is just to have a quiet little Christmas, I think.
That'll be ace. That'll be really lovely. And so where's your plan for your first trip? Have you got any ideas what you got for the new year? Have you got any plans yet?
To be in Bath for Christmas, so at least close enough to Bath to be able to get the bus or something. So that's really nice, and we're excited to kind of see the Christmas markets, and Bath's such a lovely little town. I think it might even be a city, so we're excited to see that. And then straight after that, we're heading up to Bristol. We're hopefully into like the Bristol Harbour, which we're really nervous about but excited because that'll be our first experience on tidal waters. And then after that, we're kind of turning back round and coming all the way back down the K&A. ready for not sure yet.
Yeah. We've sort of toyed with the idea of doing a bit more of London if the weather's good, and then maybe heading back up north and possibly like Birmingham way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. Sounds very, very exciting. And I just want to say thank you ever so much for you both for coming onto the podcast today. And I will put all your details and everything into the information so that people can follow you and send you any messages if they need to ask any information what you've been talking about.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Enjoyed today's podcast and thank you very much for listening. Please let everybody know about the podcast so we can grow the Alternative Living Chats community. And if you'd like to join me, drop me a message. And also all the details of today's guests will be in the information of this podcast. Thank you.